In this video, I'm going to show you how an online fitness coach went from barely making 10 and 15K a month to making over $65,000 in just 3 months. Before this, he was being burnt out by another mentorship program. He was being told the wrong information about how to run profitable ads, and he was very anxious because he just didn't know what to do to grow his online coaching business. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly everything we did to take his company from roller coaster revenue, not understanding what to post, not understanding what to do for his coaching business, to having clarity, the action item, and the roadmap to follow to make $65,000 in just 3 months. So let's just jump in. Well, thank you again for doing this. I appreciate you, and over this couple of months, you've done some incredible work. Well, first I want to start with, who you are and basically what you offer. What do you do?
Yeah. So my name's Jeff. I run an online fitness coaching business that is strictly around helping moms. And what I do is we take a call it like non-cookie cutter approach. We create a personalized approach to basically help people learn how to manage their fitness and health, no matter how busy they are. It started as a side hustle a long time ago, as I used to be a full-time teacher, turned into it was a side hustle, something I did for fun, but got really passionate about doing just because of the fact that they actually wanted to learn from me, whereas kids in school didn't really want to learn from me, and grew into this being my full-time business, which was very organic in nature when I started, with a lot of word of mouth of local people. And then I had tapped out of that audience where, I still get people from time to time, but it wasn't enough to sustain growth, basically. And since I transitioned into doing this full-time, I needed a better system in place in order to bring leads in consistently to be able to fill the calendar with sales calls. And I started diving into ads, but had no idea what I was doing, and also didn't know if I had the right nurture sequence and funnel in place in order to move people from being really cold traffic to being interested in signing up. So that's kind of where, I was introduced to you, and we started talking through. Actually, what's funny is you and I, it was like a year before I actually signed up, where you and I had that initial call where we just talked about stuff, and you gave me feedback that took my follower account from 1,000 followers to now I'm up to 7,000 followers. And I've literally used the same strategy you and I used when we had officially started back then, when you gave me that audit of my account. So that's where we started. Which is why I knew when I wanted to, really grow that funnel and learn how to get into the paid marketing side. That's when you and I then decided to tap in and work together on that.
Yeah, I remember that, dude.
You were
I
in a
was in
coffee shop in Miami.
Yeah, in Miami. It was super loud. I remember. That was a while ago. But I think you bled into my next question, which is before we started working together, you kind of talked about it, how you were kind of dabbling into ads. I think when we first met, you weren't full time in your business. When we met
Right, I
a
was
year
not.
ago. Yeah.
Mhm.
How was your business doing at that time?
It's a good question. I'll have to go to look thinking, I would just say that I was probably somewhere between 10 and 15K months at that time. My goal has been to, be able to sustain 20K months in the business at least. And I was trending in that direction before we had spoke, but just not on a consistent basis, because it all was around renewals, and it all was around really that my organic audience saving me. And so I knew I needed to get into ads. The strategies that I was implementing from others that I had learned from it was very cookie cutter. It was not detailed enough or specific enough. And the thing that I needed help was being okay, well, how do I implement things specific to my audience, my offer? And that was going to build that trust. So I knew this was the area I needed to go down. And because of, having been following you after us talking before, I knew that, all right, the strategy you implemented initially worked. So I was okay, imagine now, and I actually have you helping me look at all of the information and what we're doing together, and knowing okay, this is how I scale and create a structure that turns us even more into a business.
Yeah. So it was more of I need to find a way to get consistent leads, and not only getting the leads, but now that I have people actually following me, how to get those people to trust me,
Right.
like me, and buy from me, essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because from watching your content, there's so many different levels in a funnel of that are required, and different types of content that's required in order to get someone, wanting to click on your stuff. And I didn't feel I was having that. I'd have people come to my page who liked what they saw, but they weren't actually clicking, they weren't buying. And so it's okay, how do I make these people interested in my offer more? And so you and I, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but you and I have gone really deep into figuring out where I needed to focus my attention, how to improve my copy, different
Yeah.
angles to try so we can get people to warm up.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that for
Yeah.
sure. There's a lot of beautiful things that we worked on, and I want to touch on that real quick, man, because I think the way you grew into your business is actually very very unique. Because you did mention you were a full-time professor too, and this started like a hobby. What was, other than maybe, well, I guess other than money being a factor that played into it, what was the main reason that you wanted to make this your full time? I guess Was it like to support your family better? Like what was the?
Yeah, I wanted more flexibility in my routine to be around more with the kids. So with teaching, I had to be out the door first thing in the morning, and then I wasn't available to help until later. And so I have three little kids, and I wanted to be around. I wanted to be around to help out with kid drop off and pick up, to help with doctor's visits, and just to be around and play more while they're young. Making this transition has allowed me to do that. And, I've gone from working 40 to 60 hours a week to now probably working like 30. I'd always love to work more, but it's like with where I'm at in life, this has given me the ability to not, which is very special.
Yeah, and I also love the fact, and I tell this to people that I meet, and I tell current clients too. You came in, and we'll talk about that. We'll dive into this later. You came in with a very specific number. So like we met a year ago or something like that, like a while back. You weren't my client, but we just knew of each other.
Yeah.
And like you said, you were following me, and we kind of jumped on a call. You had a very specific number. You said, I want to hover around 20 to 25K a month because that's my happy number. And I love that, bro. I love that about you, that you're like very like head on. This is what I need to do. And that made our job easier too, because we knew exactly like this many leads we need to make. We need this many conversations, these many calls in the month, and that, which is great. But I don't wanna deviate. I just wanted to make end that emphasis because I think it's pretty cool. Like, it's a very cool perspective. We met now more officially, I guess, in January. We knew each other from the industry, which is very small. What was your thought of going through the process of getting onboarded with us? Because I know you were coming from a different mentorship, or at the time I think you were in a mentorship. But I guess like what were your thoughts on the process?
I liked how detail oriented it was into really not only understanding my offer, but just understanding my entire ecosystem of being like, hey, how am I moving people through my system from when they enter to when they become a client? Like what's missing? Really understanding, the pain points of my audience, understanding what their desires are. There was a lot of detailed information you had asked of me to make sure that we could create something that was uniform. It showed a lot of like my weak links. And so what I liked was too, as business owners, we have so many projects that we come to mind with, and you did a really good job with your system of being like, hey, what's a high priority and what's a low priority? So that way, instead of, even though the low priority stuff might be something we enjoy doing sometimes, it like helped me realize, hey, where should I be prioritizing my projects this week? And so by seeing the high priority in your system, that helped me, I would say, get through that list quicker.
Through the process of you becoming a client, but not yet a client, do you have any doubts, any fears about investing into another mentorship?
I think that there's always a fear of doing those things because you're like, am I going to get the value from it? I really think what helped me was there was no pressure ever from you. I think that when you have people who pressure you with like gimmicks, where they say, hey, if you sign now, I'll lock you in for like a cheaper rate. Or if you do these things, like everything, nothing changed from our first conversation. So when we finally got started, it was very much like you just wanted to support me. And I think by you taking the like clearly invested in me as a person approach, and not like I'm just trying to make money off you approach, which you see a lot of, I think is what I felt very comfortable knowing I was going to have the support. Like you and your team communicated very well in the onboarding process. That made me feel good, because that was a big thing I told you before. Like communication was big for me. I wanted someone who was going to be there and be part of it, and not just someone who's like, hey, outside of our calls, I'm not talking to you type thing. So
Yeah.
I'd say the combination between the communication and just with the communication and the full transparency were something that I very much appreciated.
Yeah, bro, for sure. And thank you for saying that. I know we've worked for, 5 months now. And unfortunately, but fortunately, what people care about more is like, where are you now as far as like, 'cause you had a very specific goal on hitting 20 to 25, take home 13. Where are you now in business?
Yeah, so we're the last 3 months, we've consistently hit those numbers, which is great. But honestly, the biggest thing that I've taken away from our time really is my understanding of what needs to be done from like the system with creating the right funnel, having the right types of content. Honestly, to like what we've done on the marketing side with the ads has been huge. Like you did it, but what I liked is this wasn't where like we just hire you and you do it for us. Like you actually taught things. And I've been on other calls with other mentorships now where I've listened to them give feedback to people on ads and like what they're telling them, like decisions to make. And I just sit there with like my jaw down of like how incorrect some of the advice is, or just how just inaccurate the information is that's being given. And you really took the time to help me understand every metric of the funnel and helping me figure out, hey, what decisions need to be made based on what we're seeing with the data, knowing how to change ads based on how they're performing, how to make sure that we're looking at the right part of that information. And I think that's been like invaluable to be able to have that. And also too, when we think about where the ads were, when I was coming to you, they were like $10, $12 like cost per lead was up there. And now we're down to like $2.50, which is like insane. So I think really really the huge value for me has been, it's not just been the money made, it's really been the knowledge gained has been like the biggest one, which you can't put the money to, because like to be able to look at my data in a way that I didn't have the confidence to before, that's been probably like the biggest growing thing for me from this experience.
But my goal is always just to give you like an arsenal of weapons. I literally want you to be able to go to war and have all the weapons you can to like make sure you can accommodate yourself in business, because business is just a thing that always changes, man. Like maybe right now you have a good amount of leads flowing in, but then it's you having issues with monetization. How are you going to make sure you sell those people? So like I want to give you that skill as well of going into a sales call, understanding what you need to do, how you need to sell, etc. So, dude, that's huge. Yeah, I mean, the money is good, but like you said, it's the knowledge, and I think no, I don't think I know for sure that's gonna keep you going further in your business, keep scaling if that's what you want, and hiring people, all those things. I feel like all the pieces in business work together, right? And it kills me to know that a lot of people just don't do that with their mentees. They don't teach them that, and it's crazy. And I guess
Well, what's nice,
Mhm.
I mean, what's one thing too that's different with what you did is it wasn't about you and your numbers. It wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna teach you everything you have to do to just like make endless amounts of money. Like you said, now of course I'm not against making money, but like you said, my goals were always the forefront of our conversation and what I needed that week. And some weeks it was mindset calls because I was having a hard time with the mindset. Sometimes it was data calls. Sometimes it was booking another call because I just needed your support at that time. So again, another way where it was a very different mentorship type experience.
Yeah, thank you, bro. And I guess, I mean, out of all of that, would you say that the best moment when we partner up was like understanding your business at a deeper level, or was it finally hitting that 25K month? Like what would you rank like best moment in our mentorship?
Yeah, I would say so. It's a tie right now. I would say between understanding where I'm lacking in my funnel of nurturing my audience and doing better at doing that, combined with the knowledge you taught me from how to do a better job with the marketing side and the sales side of the equation, and helping me create a better approach to working with a colder audience would be like the two things. Like you said, the money was just like icing on the cake type thing, because even if that didn't come during this time, with like enough reps, that stuff does come. And with like what we talked about, like if I keep doing everything that you and I've been talking about, like that comes. But it's like one thing I've learned from doing now, I've been in mentorships for like 5, 6 years. Some of the stuff that you're taught is it's like, well, what do I do now? Because they're just teaching you things to like make a quick buck, basically, but not teaching you the skills. So the fact that I have those skills now are what help me keep moving forward. So I can look at data and understand what I'm looking at, understanding where I'm lacking. Whereas if it was just like, oh, cool, I hit a number, but like that number means nothing if I can't continuously produce that number, but the stuff we worked on allow me to keep producing those numbers.
Right now with that knowledge, what do you feel like you're able to do now with that knowledge that you were not able to do before?
I can look at my data constraints and figure out what's the missing link that needs to be focused on, or what's like the biggest hurdle that needs to be addressed next. It's the confidence to be able to make a decision without needing approval from somebody first. Before, I could not have done that. I would not know how to look at my numbers or how to make those types of decisions. You also taught me how to be true to like who I am, and not try to do things in a salesy way or in a way that doesn't feel natural, and to keep things authentic.
Yeah, it's hard, man. At a high level too, people just want to indoctrinate you into like believing a certain thing or thinking a certain way. When I feel like the most beautiful thing in business is teaching you how to become more of you, and how that even just being you, you can get more people through the door and help you help more people in a way that's very genuine and doesn't feel like you're being fake. And that's huge. I think you really crushed that, bro. So like again, you definitely crushed it. And I guess couple two last questions to close this up, man. It's an interesting question. What things did you hate doing that you don't have to do anymore? When you were part-time, going full-time, and maybe there were things that you hated to do because you lacked the knowledge or you lacked the expertise, and now that you're armed with that knowledge and expertise in data gathering and closing, and what things that you hate doing that you don't have to do those anymore?
This is kind of a twist off of that, because it's not more of a hate doing, it's more of a hated experiencing that I don't have to experience anymore. Is I have noticed my anxiety, my day-to-day anxiety around what tomorrow looks like has gone down with decisions I make. So like I felt very much like I would stare at numbers like on the ads and being concerned with like what the day-to-day would look like, or not knowing what the whole process should look like. So everything was an unknown. Whereas now I've learned to take a step back and view things more analytical and less emotional, which has been huge for like just day to day being able to stay in the game and not question myself. as much. Like when you're
Mm.
making that transition from part-time to full-time, or even making the transition, truthfully, I'd say probably that first month of running ads is like brutal, because you're just like, it takes a while to like figure out what's going to work. And you're like, is this going to work for me? Is this not going to work for me? And so now understanding that process with testing ads, understanding how to like give the data time and what that looks like, I no longer ride that emotional roller coaster every day. And I mean, sometimes you do, but not like it was before because of that. So does that kind of answer that? Like I said, because I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
been the biggest thing.
Yeah, dude, I love that. And so I guess right now you feel like you have the knowledge and you have the expertise now to take the business more head on with a cool head, knowing and understanding what numbers mean and knowing what the next step is. Like you feel like you have that knowledge right now to just keep growing your business and keep riding the wave.
I feel like I have reached a point from everything we've done where I can use the information to keep me in my happy place right now with, like I said, of where I'm at this time, knowing that, all right, new challenges are going to come up at some point, but I have a foundation now that I can build off of. And whatever direction that goes, like so be it. But I now have like leveled up my business to a place that I can't go back from because of all the skills that I've learned.
Nice. I love that, bro. And then the last question I ask everyone is, let's just imagine in this Zoom watching, kind of like just thinking about stuff. What would you tell that someone who's watching this right now and maybe is unsure about taking the next step with us? Maybe it's feeling a little bit unsure, like maybe how you did a year ago when we first talked. What would you tell that person that's watching this and kind of like unsure about the next step?
You know, everyone has different reasons why they are willing to invest in a mentor or not willing to invest in a mentor. But I would say if you are lacking like confidence in your ability to make the right decisions that are going to grow your business to the levels you want, and you don't have an understanding of your data, you don't know if you have all the systems in place with your funnel, with your content, with your even with your team to be able to manage everything, you have two options. You can stay where you are and try to figure it out yourself and take an extremely long time and a pretty high chance of not getting there because you don't know what you don't know. Or, you know, you can invest in yourself to make these changes and, you know, jump a couple steps ahead faster because you actually have someone who can help you not make all of the faults that you might make. And so I would just really say, like, if you're serious about your business and you don't know what to do, you have to take the leap of faith and try something new or nothing's going to change.
And lastly, just to close this off, would you recommend us to help another fellow coaching business?
Yeah, 100%. Because the cool part too is, like you said, it's not, there's so many things that you do. You know, it's not just marketing, it's not just sales, it's making all the pieces work together. And so regardless of where people are at in their business, there's an opportunity for growth. And, you know, you do a really good job at mapping out that plan and exactly what to focus on.
Thank you, brother. And maybe just in case mom is watching this, where can they find you so that you can help them with their fitness?
Yeah, my Instagram is Jeff Steinberg _SMT, and or they can go to stonemountaintraining.com.
Awesome. Jeff, thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
You bet, man.